The grand amphitheater of the Galactic Defense Academy could hold 3,000 cadets, and today every seat was filled. Students from 47 different species sat in neat rows, their bodies as different as theirs. Some had scales, others had crystal skin that caught the light. Some stood on 4 legs, others on 6. The air buzzed with dozens of languages being translated through universal devices. Today was the first day of advanced combat integration. Every final year student had to take this course. It was mandatory. The cadets whispered among themselves, comparing their natural advantages. The students touched their diamond-hard exoskeletons with pride. They flexed their 8 arms, each one faster than most species could see. The massive cracked their knuckles, each one capable of denting starship hull plating. Then the doors opened. An instructor walked in. She was human. That fact alone made the amphitheater fall silent, not because humans were rare. They had been part of the Galactic Union for 200 years now. The silence came from confusion. Humans were small. This instructor stood maybe 165 centimeters tall, thin compared to most species present. Her black hair was tied back in a simple style. She wore the standard academy uniform, nothing special. She moved across the arena floor with quiet steps that seemed almost hesitant. Behind her walked another human. He was taller, more muscular, but he looked nervous. His eyes kept darting to the thousands of alien faces watching from above. Stopped in the center of the arena. Her voice, when she spoke, was calm and clear. The translation devices carried it to every ear in the room. Welcome to Advanced Combat Integration. I am Instructor. I will be teaching you close-quarters combat for the next 6 months. A rumble went through the crowd, confused whispers in a dozen languages. Finally, a massive shape stood up in the front row. Was a nearly 3 meters tall, his muscles like coiled cables under thick gray skin. His species had evolved for combat. They were born warriors. No disrespect, Instructor's voice was deep as thunder. But humans have no natural weapons, no claws, no venom, no armor plating. Why would we learn combat from your species? It was a fair question. Every cadet in the room was thinking it. The other instructors, grizzled veterans from a dozen war species, leaned forward in their observation booth. They were curious too. In 300 years of galactic military integration, humans had never taught combat courses. They always declined this role. Looked up at, she did not seem offended. A small smile touched her lips. Because we're still here, she said simply. The answer made no sense to most of the cadets. Snorted, a sound like rocks grinding together. I mean no insult, but I could defeat you with one strike. My species has natural advantages that. Then demonstrate, interrupted. Come down here, show the class what natural advantages look like. The amphitheater erupted in excited chatter. Even the senior instructors sat up, looked around, then shrugged his massive shoulders. He jumped from the stands, landing in the arena with a boom that shook the floor. Quickly stepped back to give them space. "What would you like me to do?" asked. "Your fastest kick," said. "Aim for my center mass, don't hold back." Several instructors started to stand in the observation booth. This was dangerous. A full-power kick could kill most beings, but raised one hand toward them without looking away from. "It's fine," she said. Positioned himself. The species was famous for their leg strikes. Their muscle structure was dense, evolved from creatures that hunted by kicking prey to death. Their bones could handle impacts that would shatter other species' limbs. "You're sure?" asked one more time. Just nodded. The took a breath. His leg muscles coiled like industrial springs. Every cadet in the amphitheater watched, some through special vision devices to catch the speed. Kicks were among the fastest natural strikes in the known galaxy. His leg blurred forward. What happened next was too fast for most species to see with natural eyes. Those watching through slow-motion recorders would talk about it for years. His hand moved, not her body, not a dodge, just her hand rising in a smooth, economical motion. Two fingers extended, her thumb and index finger. They moved like scissors closing. She caught's ankle. Not blocked, not deflected, caught. Her two fingers pinched a specific point just above his heel, and his entire massive body went rigid. 3 meters of dense muscle and bone, frozen in place. His leg was still extended in the kick position. He balanced impossibly on his other leg, held there by a human woman's 2-finger grip. The amphitheater was absolutely silent. His eyes were wide with shock. He tried to move his leg. Nothing happened. He tried to pull back. His muscles strained, but the leg wouldn't respond. A small sound escaped his throat, something between confusion and fear. Held the position for 3 seconds. Then she released the pressure point and stepped back smoothly. Stumbled, catching himself. He looked at his own leg like it had betrayed him, flexing it experimentally. What did you do?" he asked. "I stopped the signal," said. She turned to address the entire amphitheater, her voice carrying clearly. "Every species here has advantages: strength, speed, natural armor, venom. You were born with weapons." She held up her hand, spreading her fingers. "Humans were born with none of that. So we learned. We studied. We mapped every species we encountered. We found the points where nerves cluster, where signals pass, where a small amount of pressure in exactly the right place can override strength that's 1,000 times greater than ours." She walked in a slow circle, making sure every section of the amphitheater could see her. "That's lesson 1. Humans don't have natural weapons because we learned to make every part of us into one. We turned knowledge into a weapon, understanding into an advantage. Sat down heavily on the arena floor, still staring at his leg. The other cadets were silent, processing what they had just seen. His expression changed slightly. Something flickered in her eyes, something old and dangerous that made several cadets shift uncomfortably in their seats. "Lesson 2, she said quietly, but her voice still carried to every corner of the massive room. The galaxy is about to remember why humanity's first ships weren't exploration vessels. They were prison transports." She let that statement hang in the air for a long moment. You see, when the Galactic Union found Earth, they discovered a species that had spent 200,000 years hunting things bigger, faster, and stronger than themselves. When we ran out of predators to hunt, we started hunting each other. We got very, very good at it. Gestured to, who was still standing at the edge of the arena. The Union made a deal with Earth. They would give us technology, a place in galactic society. In exchange, Earth would send away its most dangerous elements, its warriors, its criminals, the ones who scared even other humans. She paused, scanning the faces above her. The Union thought scattering humans across the frontier would dilute our violence, make us manageable, safe. Another pause. Her smile was not friendly anymore. "Over the next 6 months, I'm going to teach you how humans fight, how we think about combat, how we turn disadvantages into weapons. And by the end of this course, you'll understand why no instructor has ever dared teach this before." She looked directly at, still sitting on the floor. "You asked why you should learn from a species with no natural advantages. Here's your answer. Because the species with no advantages had to get creative to survive. And creativity in combat is far more dangerous than any claw or fang could ever be." Clapped her hands once, the sharp sound breaking the tension. "Class dismissed. Tomorrow we begin actual training. I suggest you all get a good night's sleep. You're going to need it." The cadets filed out slowly, many of them looking back at the small human instructor standing alone in the center of the arena. Was the last to leave, walking carefully, still testing his leg. In the observation booth, the senior instructors sat in silence. Finally, one of them, a decorated war hero named, spoke. "We may have made a mistake allowing this course." The others nodded slowly. They had all seen the look in his eyes when she talked about Earth's history. They recognized it. It was the look of a predator that had been pretending to be prey for so long that everyone forgot what it really was. Down in the arena stood alone, approached her cautiously. "That was intense," he said in their native language. "Do you think they're ready for what comes next?" Looked up at the empty seats. at the place where 3,000 cadets had just learned their first lesson about human combat. "No," she said softly, "but they will be, or they'll quit. Either way, they'll understand what it means to fight like a human." She turned and walked toward the exit, her footsteps quiet on the arena floor. Behind her, the lights began to dim, leaving only shadows. The lesson had just begun. The next morning, the amphitheater was packed again. Every cadet from the previous day returned, and many had brought friends. Word had spread through the academy about what happened with. Students who weren't even enrolled in the course stood in the back, watching. Entered with the same quiet walk. Today, she was joined by 2 other human instructors. She introduced them simply. "This is," she gestured to a woman with short hair and a face covered in thin scars, "former Earth Special Forces. She will assist with aggressive combat techniques." Nodded but didn't smile. Her eyes scanned the crowd like she was counting targets. "And this is," continued, indicating a man with gentle features but arms marked with old burn scars, "Combat Medic. He will teach you about human durability and biology." Did smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. Several cadets shifted uncomfortably. There was something wrong about a medic who looked like he'd been through a war. "Today," began, "we're going to talk about history. The real history, not the version in your textbooks." She activated a holographic display. An image of Earth appeared, floating in the center of the arena. Blue and green, beautiful from space. When the Galactic Union first found Earth in the year 2521, they expected to rescue a primitive species from destroying itself. Humans were in the middle of something we called the Consolidation Wars. The image changed. Cities burning, mushroom clouds, landscapes turned to glass. For 100 years, Earth tore itself apart. Every nation had enough weapons to crack the planet's crust. Our oceans were poisoned. Our air was toxic in some places. Billions died. The cadets watched in silence. They knew war, but this was different. This was a species trying to commit suicide. The Union ships arrived thinking they would find survivors begging for help. Instead, they found soldiers who had been fighting for so long that war was all they knew. They found scientists who had weaponized everything from viruses to quantum mechanics. They found a species that had 17 different words for suicide charge across their various languages. Paused, letting that sink in. "The Union was terrified," she said flatly. "They had never encountered a species like humans. We had no natural weapons, but we had made weapons out of everything. We had no thick skin, but we had built armor. We had no venom, but we had created poisons that could kill entire cities." Raised one massive hand, nodded to him. "If humans were so dangerous, why let them into the Union at all?" "Good question," said. The Union had a choice: leave Earth alone and hope we stayed contained to our own planet, or make a deal. The hologram changed again. Now it showed massive ships, crude and industrial-looking compared to sleek Union vessels. The deal was simple. Earth would get technology, medicine, access to the galaxy. In exchange, we would send away our most dangerous elements, our warriors, our violent criminals, the people who even other humans were afraid of. Spoke up from her position at the side of the arena. They called them volunteers, made it sound noble. But really, Earth's governments were happy to exile anyone who made them uncomfortable. Too violent, too aggressive, too willing to fight. Where did they send them? A cadet asked. The frontier, answered. Harsh worlds, low resources, difficult conditions. The Union thought if they scattered humans across dozens of colony worlds, far from each other and far from Earth, the violence would dilute, fade away, disappear within a generation or two. The smile was cold. The Union was wrong. She brought up new images: colony settlements, harsh, rocky planets, desert worlds, ice worlds, places where most species would struggle to survive. Humans did what we always do. We survived. We adapted. And we taught our children to survive too. Those colony worlds became some of the toughest settlements in the Union. Crime dropped to almost nothing because everyone knew their neighbors were descendants of Earth's most dangerous people. She walked slowly around the arena as she spoke. But more importantly, those humans married into other species. They had children with, and they taught those children how humans think about combat, how we fight, how we win against superior opponents. Myra, and Cadet with brilliant blue skin, stood up. Instructor, are you saying humans deliberately spread combat knowledge through mixed families? Not deliberately, said, but inevitably. When you raise a child, you teach them what you know, and humans know fighting. It's coded into our culture so deeply that we can't separate it from who we are. She pulled up another hologram. This one showed children playing. Human children play fighting games before they can speak full sentences. They wrestle. They pretend to battle. Every human culture on Earth, no matter how different, had martial traditions going back thousands of years. When we tried to become peaceful, to join the Union, we didn't stop teaching our children these things. We just called them sports instead of combat training. A standing near the front raised his hand, nodded to him. Show them the timeline, he said quietly. His expression tightened, but she brought up a new display. It showed a graph. On one side, human integration into the Union. On the other, conflict statistics for frontier worlds. For the first 50 years after the exiles began, frontier worlds had high crime rates, violence, difficulty, exactly what the Union expected from dumping criminals there. The graph showed a sharp line going down. Then something changed. Around year 75, crime rates dropped. Conflicts between species decreased. Frontier worlds started becoming stable. She zoomed in on specific colony worlds. What the Union didn't realize was that humans were teaching survival skills to everyone around them. Not just combat, persistence, endurance, the refusal to give up. Within 3 generations, you had entire communities of mixed species families who all thought like humans about problem solving. A cadet with purple crystal skin stood. But if they became stable, why does the Union still fear them? Laughed a harsh sound. Because stable doesn't mean safe. It means efficient. Those frontier communities don't fight among themselves anymore. They save their fighting skills for external threats. Stepped forward. Let me show you something about human biology. Come here. The young human walked to the center of the arena. Had him remove his jacket, showing his bare arms. Humans have something we call redundant systems, explained. Most species have one heart, one liver, one of most organs. We have 2 kidneys, 2 lungs, sections of our brain that can compensate if other parts are damaged. He pressed his fingers against ribs, pointing out structures. But more than that, humans have pain tolerance that most species find insane. Our brains can release chemicals that let us keep fighting through injuries that would stop you. We call it adrenaline. It's a survival mechanism from when we used to hunt prey by running after it for days until it collapsed from exhaustion. He looked up at the watching cadets. I've seen human soldiers continue fighting with broken bones, with wounds that should have killed them, with blood loss that would put most species in shock. They kept moving because the objective mattered more than survival. The amphitheater was very quiet now. Took over again. The Union history books will tell you that humans integrated peacefully, that we became civilized, that we learned to control our violent nature. She looked around at every section of the seating. That's true in a way. We did become civilized. We built cities on other worlds. We followed Union laws. We worked in Union jobs, but underneath, we're still the same species that spent 200,000 years as persistence hunters. The same species that invented warfare so efficient we almost destroyed our own planet. We just got better at hiding it. She pulled up a final image. It showed human soldiers in various Union conflicts over the past 200 years. The Union has fought in 47 major conflicts since humans joined. In every single one, human units had the highest casualty rates. Do you know why? No one answered. Because we volunteer for the worst assignments, the impossible missions, the suicide runs, and we complete them. Our casualty rate is 98%, but our success rate is 100%. We're willing to die to finish the job." He spoke again, his voice troubled. "That's not courage, that's insane," finished for him. "Yes, from your perspective it is. But from a human perspective, if you're going to die anyway, you might as well take the objective with you. Might as well make it mean something." She deactivated the hologram. That's what the frontier colonies learned from their human ancestors. That's what they're teaching their children. Not just how to fight, but how to think about fighting. How to decide that winning matters more than surviving. Myra spoke up again. "Why are you telling us this? Why reveal all of this?" Looked at the cadet for a long moment. "Because you're going to learn it anyway. You're going to train with us for 6 months. You're going to start thinking like we do. And when you graduate and go to your posts across the Union, you're going to carry that with you. The Union needs to understand what they created when they scattered humans across the galaxy." She walked toward the exit, then stopped and turned back. "Tomorrow we start physical training. We're going to teach you techniques that work against opponents stronger, faster, and better armed than you. We're going to teach you how humans hunt, how we trap, how we win." As the cadets filed out, they were quieter than before. The excitement from yesterday had been replaced with something else, understanding, and perhaps a little fear. In the observation booth, Instructor watched leave. Another instructor, a general, sat beside him. "She's telling them too much," the general said. Shook his head slowly. "No, she's telling them exactly enough. If they're going to learn human combat, they need to understand the philosophy behind it. Otherwise, they'll just learn techniques without context." "And that's better?" the general asked. Stood, his crystal body catching the light. "I don't know, but I think we're about to find out what happens when you teach the galaxy to think like humans. The Union scattered them to protect us from their violence. Now we're inviting that violence back in, teaching it, spreading it." He looked down at the empty arena. "We may come to regret this." 3 weeks passed. The cadets learned techniques that challenged everything they thought they knew about combat, taught them pressure points for 17 different species, showed them how to use an opponent's strength against them, explained the medical vulnerabilities that every biology had, no matter how tough. Then the alarm sounded. It was midnight Academy time. Red lights flashed through the corridors. Cadets stumbled from their quarters, confused and frightened. The announcement came over every speaker. "Emergency deployment. Senior combat instructor and volunteer cadets to docking Bay 7. This is not a drill." Was already in the bay when the cadets arrived. She wore different clothes now, black tactical gear instead of her academy uniform, and stood beside her, similarly dressed. They were checking weapons with practiced efficiency. Instructor appeared, his crystal body gleaming in the harsh lights. Behind him, the Academy Commandant, an elderly named, floated on his gravity platform. "We have a situation," said without preamble. "The mining colony on Taros 7 is under attack. Raiders. They've taken the central habitat with 2,000 civilians inside." The cadets who had gathered looked at each other nervously. They were not part of the Union. They were pirates, slavers who raided frontier settlements. "Standard protocol is to wait for siege specialists," continued. "But they have a pattern. They give us 24 hours, then they start executing hostages to force negotiation. We have 27 hours. He looked at, "I'm leading the response team. I want human instructors with me, and I want volunteers from your combat class." Stepped forward immediately. "I volunteer." Myra was next. Then, and. Within minutes, 20 cadets had volunteered, representing a dozen different species. Commandant spoke, his voice grave. "Cadets, understand what you're agreeing to. This is not training. They will kill you if they can. There will be no reset, no second chances." "We understand, sir," Myra said. The others nodded. The journey to Taros 7 took 3 days on the assault carrier. During that time, ran the volunteers through different drills. These weren't academy exercises. Everything was practical, dirty, designed for survival. "Forget fair fighting," told them. "Fair fighting is for sport. This is about making sure you go home alive and the enemy doesn't." Showed them medical techniques for field injuries, how to seal wounds quickly, how to keep fighting even when hurt, how to tell when a teammate was about to go into shock. On the third night, gathered all the volunteers in the cargo bay. "Tomorrow we hit the colony," she said. "I need you to understand something. You're going to see us, do things that will disturb you. We're not going to fight like we taught you in class. We're going to fight like humans fight when there are no rules and no observers." As she looked at each of them. "If at any point you want to stay on the ship, no one will judge you. This isn't what you signed up for when you joined the academy." No one moved. "All right then," said quietly. "Get some rest. Tomorrow is going to be the longest day of your lives." They dropped at night, Taros 7 local time. The colony was built into a canyon system, with the central habitat dome rising from the center. Ships sat in orbit, their weapons trained on any approaching vessels. The assault team went in quietly, using a canyon approach that kept them below sensor range. 23 total, 3 humans, 20 cadets and instructor. Through their helmet displays, the cadets could see the colony's thermal signatures. Raiders patrolled the perimeter. The habitat was locked down tight. Deployed the team according to standard tactics. Establish positions, create fields of fire, prepare for coordinated assault. The cadets moved into place, their training taking over despite their nerves. Then the humans disappeared. Not literally, but simply melted into the darkness. No special camouflage, no technology. They just used shadows, angles, and the confidence that no one would expect an attack from certain directions. The cadets watched through their thermal displays as the first perimeter guard stopped moving. No sound, no alert, appeared behind him for just a second, her hand on his neck. Then she was gone again and the guard was on the ground. Over 90 seconds, 16 perimeter guards died in complete silence. Watching through his helmet display felt something cold in his stomach. He'd seen in the arena. He'd learned her techniques in class. But this was different. This was hunting. Pure, efficient, terrifying hunting. His voice came through the team channel, barely a whisper. "Cadets, listen carefully. You're about to see humans in actual combat. No one trained you for this because there's no way to train for it without becoming it. Watch, learn, and stay out of our way." The three humans breached the central habitat. What happened next would be analyzed by military strategists for years. The cadets' helmet recordings captured everything, though even played back at 1/10 speed, it was hard to follow. Moved through the like water through stone, never where their weapons pointed, always at angles they couldn't defend. Every motion served multiple purposes. A dodge became a strike. A strike became positioning. Positioning became 3 dead raiders before the first body hit the floor. Fought differently, direct, brutal. She took hits that should have dropped her. A blade cut across her shoulder. She didn't slow down. She grabbed the raider's arm, broke it, took his weapon, and used it in ways its makers never intended. The cadets watched her take a blow to her ribs that cracked bone. They could hear it over the comm, and she just laughed and kept fighting. Was the most disturbing to watch. He was a medic, trained to heal, but he fought with a precision that was somehow worse than the others' violence. He didn't just kill the enemy. He studied them in real time, found their biological weaknesses, exploited them with surgical accuracy. The cadets had been positioned to support, to cover the assault. But the assault was over before they could process what they'd seen. 17 minutes after breach, the central habitat was secure. 200 raiders were dead, not wounded, dead. The 3 human instructors had cut through them like they weren't even there. 0 friendly casualties. The 2,000 civilians were shaken but unharmed. And his squad finally moved forward when called the all-clear. They found the 3 humans standing among the bodies, checking on civilians, their movements calm and professional as if they hadn't just done the impossible. Had blood running down her arm from her shoulder wound. She ignored it while helping a family out of a storage room where they'd hidden. Was already treating injured civilians, his hands gentle and careful. was speaking with the colony's security chief, getting information about other raider positions. Approached slowly. The cadet's crystal body was trembling slightly. Instructor Howell turned to her. There was something in her eyes that hadn't been there in the classroom. Something old and tired and very, very dangerous. "This is what we are," said simply. "Every other species evolved for survival. Humans evolved for war. We spent 200,000 years hunting things bigger and stronger than us. When we ran out of animals to hunt, we hunted each other. When we ran out of enemies, we invented them." She gestured to the secure habitat around them. "You asked why no instructor dares teach human combat. Because this is what we consider restraint. Every in this room could have been killed 5 different ways. We chose the quickest methods because civilians were at risk. If we had time, if we wanted to send a message, it would have been much worse." Myra stepped forward. "Instructor, the medical scans show you took 40 hits that should have incapacitated you. You didn't even slow down." Looked down at her tactical gear. There were tears, burns, impact points. She touched one absently. "Humans have a threshold for pain like every species. The difference is we learned to ignore it, not overcome it. Ignore it. When we decide something matters more than our own survival, our biology has a switch. We produce chemicals that let us keep going past the point where we should be dead." She met Myra's eyes. "That's not courage. That's not even stubbornness. It's our species deciding that dying is acceptable if the objective is achieved. Every human has this. The civilians on Earth, the soldiers, the criminals, everyone. It's why our military history is full of last stands that shouldn't have worked but did." Instructor arrived with the main force. He looked at the secure habitat, at the dead raiders, at the 3 humans who barely looked winded. "How long?" he asked. 17 minutes from breach to secure," reported. His crystal body seemed to dim slightly. He'd been a soldier for 30 years. He'd seen combat on a dozen worlds. But this was something else. "We were trained to minimize casualties on both sides," he said quietly. "To follow engagement protocols. To treat enemies as opponents, not." Prey finished for him. She was letting patch her shoulder now. "That's the difference, Instructor. When you fight, you follow rules. When humans fight for real, we hunt. And you don't negotiate with prey." The cadets stood in silence, processing what they'd witnessed. Their entire understanding of combat had been built on ideas of honor, fairness, protocol. What they'd just seen had none of that. It was pure, efficient violence applied with surgical precision. Looked at his own hands again. Massive, powerful, capable of incredible destruction. Then he looked at, small and seemingly fragile, who had just killed more enemies in 17 minutes than he'd faced in all his training. "We're not the apex predators," he said quietly to Myra. "We never were." Myra nodded slowly. "Humans are. They just let us forget it for a while." As the main force secured the colony and began recovery operations, the volunteers gathered around their human instructors. They had questions, so many questions, but the words wouldn't come. Finally spoke. He was human, but he'd been raised in the Union, trained in Union methods. He'd never seen other humans fight like this. "Is this what we're teaching them?" he asked. "Is this what the course is really about?" Looked at the young cadets, at their shocked faces, at the new understanding in their eyes. "No," she said. "We're teaching them techniques, skills, the philosophy behind human combat. But this," she gestured to the habitat around them, "this is what happens when humans stop teaching and start doing. This is why the Union was afraid of us. This is why they scattered us across the frontier." She began walking toward the exit, then stopped. "And this is why that was the biggest mistake they ever made." The assault carrier returned to the Academy orbital station 3 days later. The 20 cadets who had volunteered were different people now. They sat quietly in the mess hall, staring at their food without eating much. Their helmet recordings had been classified immediately, but what they'd seen couldn't be erased from their minds. Kept looking at her hands. Her crystal body could cut through steel. She could survive impacts that would pulverize most species. But she'd watched kill raiders twice her size with movements so precise they looked easy. Hadn't spoken much since the mission. The massive sat alone, occasionally flexing his leg. The same leg had stopped with 2 fingers on the first day of class. He understood now. It hadn't been a trick. It had been knowledge applied with perfect precision. In the Academy's administration tower, Commandant called an emergency council. Present were all the senior instructors, including and the 3 human instructors. 8 hands trembled slightly as he activated a holographic display. It showed medical scans, combat analysis, and psychological evaluations of the 20 volunteer cadets. "Half of these cadets are requesting trauma counseling," said. His voice was tight with worry. "The other half," he paused, and this clearly frightened him more. "The other half are requesting immediate transfer to human combat instruction programs. They want more training, more techniques. They want to learn how to fight like you do." Crossed her arms. Her shoulder was bandaged, but she moved without any sign of pain. "They saw something that worked. They want to learn it. What's the problem?" "The problem," said, his voice rising, "is that you didn't just complete a mission. You gave 20 cadets from 17 different worlds a glimpse into human warfare philosophy. Do you understand what you've done?" Spoke up calmly. "We saved 2,000 civilians. We eliminated a raider threat. We completed the mission with 0 friendly casualties." You showed them horror, slammed a hand on the table. You showed them that efficiency in killing is possible, that violence can be so controlled, so precise, so casual. Who had been silent finally spoke. Commandant, with respect, they needed to see it. We've been teaching warfare in the academy for 300 years. We teach honor, protocol, rules of engagement, but the universe doesn't care about our rules. They certainly don't. He gestured to the display showing the mission results. In 17 minutes, 3 humans did what would have taken a conventional force hours, with significant casualties on both sides. They saved lives by being efficient killers. That's a truth the cadets needed to face. It's a truth that changes them, countered. I've reviewed their psychological profiles. The ones requesting trauma counseling, I understand. They saw something that conflicts with their worldview and they need help processing it. But the others, they've started thinking differently, calculating differently. They look at problems and instead of seeking peaceful solutions first, they immediately assess combat options. Had been listening quietly. Now she spoke. Commandant, every species in the Union has this divide. You fight to restore peace. You minimize casualties. You follow protocols. That's admirable. But humans learned long ago that sometimes peace requires the total elimination of the threat, not defeating them, eliminating them so completely they never threaten anyone again. She stood and walked to the holographic display. When they came to Taros 7, they weren't there for a fair fight. They were there to take slaves. Every minute we spent following protocols was another minute those civilians spent in terror. We ended that terror in 17 minutes. Which approach actually values life more? The room was silent. Finally sighed, a sound like wind through metal. Continue the course, but I want weekly psychological evaluations of every student, and I want clear documentation that this is human methodology, not union standard. As the meeting broke up, approached privately in the corridor outside. That was almost a lie, he said quietly. What you told the commandant about valuing life. Looked at him steadily. Was it? Humans don't fight to preserve life. You fight to win. Absolutely, completely, without reservation. His expression didn't change. We fight to protect what matters to us. Sometimes that means killing efficiently so the people we care about don't have to suffer. Is that so different from your species' honor codes? Yes, said flatly. Because my species stops when honor is satisfied. Humans don't stop until the threat is eliminated, even if it means going beyond what's necessary. Necessary is subjective, replied. To you, necessary is defeating the enemy. To us, necessary is making sure they never come back. She walked away, leaving standing in the corridor, troubled by the truth in her words. The next day's combat class resumed. But everything had changed. The 20 cadets who had gone to Taro's 7 sat in the front row. Their eyes were different now, harder, more focused. The cadets who hadn't gone sat further back, whispering among themselves, staring at the volunteers like they'd become something other than fellow students. Entered and went straight to the center of the arena. "We're going to address what happened at Taro's 7, she said without preamble. Many of you have questions. Some of you are frightened. Some of you are angry. All of those reactions are valid." She looked around the amphitheater. "Myra asked me a question during the mission. She asked how I took 37 hits that should have incapacitated me without slowing down. That's what we're going to discuss today." She gestured for to join her. Every species has a threshold, a point where pain or injury or exhaustion stops you. It's biological, it's survival instinct. She pressed her thumb against his shoulder, finding a pressure point. He winced. "Your body tells you to stop because continuing will cause more damage." As she released the pressure. Humans have that threshold too. The difference is we learned to override it. Our brains can release chemicals, adrenaline, endorphins, others, that let us keep functioning past the point where we should be dead. Raised her hand. "Instructor, that's not just chemicals. The medical scans showed you had broken ribs, torn muscles, internal bleeding. You didn't just ignore pain. You kept fighting at full effectiveness with injuries that should have shut your body down." Nodded. "Yes, because humans have something other species don't. We have the ability to decide that dying is acceptable if the objective is important enough. It's not courage. It's not even stubbornness. It's a calculation. If dying means the mission succeeds and others live, then dying is an acceptable outcome." The amphitheater was dead silent. "That calculation is in every human," continued. "Not just soldiers. Civilians have it too. Parents have it when protecting children. Engineers have it when fixing critical systems. It's coded into us so deep that we don't even think about it." She walked in a slow circle. Earth's military history is full of what we call last stands. Impossible situations where humans were outnumbered, surrounded. Standard military doctrine says retreat, preserve forces, live to fight another day. Humans. We have 17 different phrases across our languages that all mean the same thing, staying to fight even when it means certain death. Stood, "Instructor, that's not rational, that's suicide." "Yes," agreed. "And it works, because the enemy expects rational behavior. They expect you to retreat when outmatched. When humans don't retreat, when we keep fighting past the point where we should be dead, it breaks the enemy's calculations. They don't know how to respond to an opponent who doesn't care about survival." A human cadet who'd been at Taro's spoke up. "But we're not teaching suicidal tactics in this class. We're teaching technique." We're teaching philosophy, corrected. The techniques are just applications. Understanding how humans think about combat is more important than knowing the moves. She brought up a holographic display. It showed various human military operations throughout Union history. Look at these. 47 major conflicts involving Union forces. In every single one, human casualties were the highest, but human success rates were also the highest. We lose more people because we take the missions no one else will. The impossible extractions, the suicidal defenses, the assaults that require accepting massive losses. She zoomed in on one particular operation. This was a hostage rescue on 300 civilians held by rebels in a fortress complex. Union command wanted to negotiate, wait them out, minimize casualties. The human unit commander looked at the same situation and said, "We can end this in 1 hour, but we'll lose 30% of the assault team." The display showed the operation's results. They lost 32%, slightly worse than estimated, but all 300 hostages survived. The mission was completed in 57 minutes. That commander received a reprimand for excessive casualties and a medal for mission success. That's the contradiction humans live with in the Union. Myra stood slowly. You're saying the Union wants our effectiveness but not our methods. Exactly, said. They want us to win, but to do it according to their rules. To value enemy lives as much as friendly lives. To seek minimal casualties on both sides. And sometimes we can do that. But sometimes the mission requires human methods, overwhelming violence, zero hesitation, complete commitment. She paused. That's what you saw at Taro's 7. That's what frightens the commandant. Not that we can fight like that, but that we're teaching others to think like that. A cadet in the back raised her hand. Instructor, if this is so dangerous, why teach it at all? Why not keep human combat methods separate? Smiled, but it wasn't a happy expression. Because it's already spreading. For 200 years, humans have been in the Union. We've married into other species. We've had children. We've shared our cultures. There are third-generation mixed families on dozens of worlds where human philosophy mixed with alien capabilities. The frontier colonies are full of them. She walked to the edge of the arena. The Union tried to isolate human violence by exiling our most dangerous people. Instead, they created entire communities built on human survival principles. Communities where a child might have a human grandmother who taught them that honor is nice, but winning is better. Where a teenager might have a human father who showed them that strength is less important than knowing where to apply it. The implications settled over the amphitheater like a weight. Entered from the observation booth, walking down to the arena floor. The commandant has approved continuation of this course, he announced. but with modifications. We will integrate human combat philosophy with traditional Union tactical doctrine. Students will learn both approaches and understand when each is appropriate. He looked at. Instructor will teach human methods. I will provide Union context and ethical frameworks. Between us, we will train soldiers who can make informed choices about when extreme measures are necessary and when they're not. Nodded slowly. It was a compromise, not perfect but workable. One more thing, she said to the class. Some of you will reject what you've learned here. You'll go back to traditional methods, and that's fine. Some of you will embrace human philosophy completely, and that's your choice. But all of you will carry this knowledge. All of you will know that another way exists. She looked at each section of the amphitheater. The galaxy is changing, has been changing since humans joined. You can't put that back. You can't unlearn what you know. So the question isn't whether human combat philosophy spreads. The question is whether we control how it spreads, or whether it happens randomly without guidance. As the class ended, the cadets filed out slowly, processing everything they'd heard. The 20 who'd been to Taro's 7 stayed behind. They approached. Instructor, I need to know something, he said quietly. When you fought at Taro's, did you enjoy it? Looked at him for a long moment before answering. No, I don't enjoy violence. None of us do, despite what others think. But we're good at it, and when civilians needed saving, being good at violence was what mattered. Do I regret what we did? She shook her head. Not for a second. The message arrived 6 weeks after Taro's 7. Was in her quarters, reviewing lesson plans for the next day's class, when her personal terminal chimed with a priority code she'd never seen before. The header read, Galactic Union Defense Council, Classification, Omega Black. Opened the message. It was brief and direct. Instructor, your presence is requested at Central Command immediately. The Union faces a threat that conventional forces cannot address. We need human perspective. Departure is immediate. Attached was a single image file. Opened it and her expression went completely neutral. The look her students had learned meant a human was processing something very dangerous. The image showed a deep space scan. Thousands of ships in formation, using technology that didn't match any known Union species. Their trajectory was a straight line toward the core Union worlds. Before she left, sent a quick message to and check the prison ship manifests from the last 50 years. Cross-reference with frontier colony disappearances. I think we're about to meet the people the Union scattered to forget about, and I think they're coming home. Central Command was a massive station orbiting the Union's capital world. When arrived, she found herself in a conference room with the Defense Council, representatives from every major military power in the Union. She wasn't alone. 30 other humans were present, pulled from various positions across Union space. Among them was Admiral, a woman in her 60s with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. Her service record was mostly redacted. Rumors said she'd been one of the original volunteers from Earth's prison ships. Fleet Coordinator L, a senior strategist, activated the holographic display at the center of the table. The unknown fleet appeared, rendered in detailed scans. 47,000 vessels, L said without preamble. They emerged from a region we designated as uninhabitable 3 months ago. Dead worlds, harsh conditions, minimal resources. We had no idea anyone was living there, let alone building a fleet. The display zoomed in on individual ships. They were crude-looking compared to sleek Union designs, but clearly functional. More disturbing were the energy signatures, mixed technology from dozens of species, retrofitted and combined in ways that shouldn't work but apparently did. "We've intercepted transmissions," L continued. Audio filled the room. The voices were harsh, speaking in multiple languages simultaneously. Recognized ancient Earth dialects mixed with trade language, military codes, and family speech patterns. But it was what they were saying that made every human in the room go still. "Time to come home, Union. Time to settle accounts. The wolves you scattered are returning. Earth's children grew up hard. Let's see how soft the core has become." Admiral stood slowly, her chair scraping against the floor. When she spoke, her voice was steady but tight with controlled emotion. "Those are human voices, mixed with and others. That fleet isn't an invasion force. It's a coalition, multi-generational, built from the frontier worlds." Commandant, who had traveled from the academy to be present, leaned forward on his gravity platform. "How is this possible? The frontier colonies send regular reports. We monitor." "You monitor the colonies you know about," interrupted. "The official settlements, the ones that stayed in contact. But for 200 years you've been sending people to the frontier. Not all of them stayed where you put them. Some went deeper, further out, to places where the Union couldn't watch them." Connected the pieces aloud, her voice cutting through the shocked silence. "The Union sent Earth's most dangerous people to the frontier thinking distance would dilute our violence. Instead, we did what humans do. We survived. We adapted. And we taught everyone around us how to fight like we do." She stood and walked to the holographic display, studying the fleet formations. "Those aren't prisoners coming home. They're the children and of the exiles, raised on harsh worlds, mixing human combat philosophy with alien physical advantages. You created exactly what you feared most." L brought up tactical analysis. Some of their ships are using maneuvers we've never seen. They accept casualty rates of 40% but guarantee objective success. They employ psychological warfare tactics that—" He trailed off, looking at the humans in the room. "That break the enemy before the fighting starts," Admiral finished. "They're fighting like humans, because we taught them. For 50 years, we sent the Union's outcasts to the frontier, and they built something out there. Something that remembers why you were afraid of Earth in the first place." The Defense Council began debating options. The voices overlapped, rising in pitch and urgency. Option 1: military response. The Union had larger numbers, better technology, established supply lines. Option 2: negotiation. Try to understand their demands, find a peaceful solution. Option 3: the one no one wanted to say aloud. Finally voiced it. "We could use Earth. 9 billion humans on the who aren't exiles. They have industrial capacity, population, and—" He paused, looking uncomfortable. "And they're humans who know they'd be fighting other humans," interrupted sharply. "You want to start a human civil war, one that would make the consolidation wars look like practice." The room fell silent. Admiral gestured to the other humans present. "We need a private discussion. Give us 1 hour." The Defense Council reluctantly agreed, filing out and leaving the 31 humans alone in the conference room. Waited until the doors sealed, then switched to English, a language many of them hadn't used in years. "They want us to solve their problem," she said bluntly. "They want us to kill our own people because they're afraid to." A human named spoke up. "Our own people who we exiled for being too violent, who survived because of that violence, who built thriving communities on worlds that should have killed them." Joining via secure channel from the Academy, added, "Our own people who are doing exactly what humans do best, surviving impossible odds and coming back stronger." Looked at the fleet display. The Union made a mistake 200 years ago. They thought scattering wolves would get them sheep. Instead, they just created a bigger pack. The discussion went on for 45 minutes. Arguments about loyalty to the Union, counter-arguments about loyalty to fellow humans, questions about whether the frontier fleet was actually a threat or just wanted recognition. Finally, made a decision. "I'm going to send a message to both sides. Anyone who wants to disassociate can leave now." No one moved. Recorded the message. It broadcast on all channels simultaneously, to the frontier fleet and to every Union world. "My name is Instructor, human, Earth descent. I speak now to the frontier fleet and to the Union Defense Council. To the frontier, you're angry, you should be. Your ancestors were exiled for being inconvenient, for being the part of humanity that scared comfortable people. You survived. You thrived. You built something worth defending. That's what humans do. To the Union, you're afraid. You should be. You created what you feared by trying to eliminate it. You scattered humanity's violence across the stars and it grew stronger, mixed with other species, became something new. Neither of you understands the truth. Humans aren't a plague of violence. We're survivors. We reflect what the universe shows us. Put us in peace. We build civilizations. Put us on harsh worlds with impossible odds. We become hard enough to match. The frontier fleet isn't invading. They're coming home to demand what they've earned, recognition as equal members of the civilization that tried to forget them. I propose a third option. Let them come, not as enemies but as what they are, Union citizens who survived and want their voice heard. The message ended. The silence in the conference room was heavy. 3 days later, the frontier fleet sent a response. One ship requested permission to dock at Central Command. Its pilot identified herself as a third-generation frontier human. The meeting took place in the same conference room. Entered wearing practical frontier clothing, her face weathered from years on harsh worlds. But her eyes were sharp, calculating, very human. Beside her walked a woman whose crystal structure had unusual patterns, the genetic markers of mixed heritage. A male with human facial features, and whose movements had the efficiency of human training. Looked around the table at the Defense Council and smiled. It wasn't friendly. You thought exiling us would make us disappear, she said. Instead, you made us strong. We built communities where survival mattered more than politics, where your species learned what humans already knew, that the universe doesn't care about your rules. Elle leaned forward. What do you want? Recognition, said flatly. Full representation in the Union Council. Access to resources and education that the core worlds take for granted, and guarantees that you won't try to scatter us again. And the 47,000 ships? Asked. Insurance, the woman said. She spoke with a human accent, her phrasing direct and blunt. We're not threatening invasion. We're making sure you can't ignore us, can't exile us, can't pretend we don't exist. The male added, we fight like humans because humans taught us to survive. We're not coming to burn the Union. We're coming to claim our seat at the table. And yes, we brought enough guns to make sure you listen. The negotiations took 3 weeks, stayed at Central Command, acting as translator between human thinking and Union protocol. It wasn't easy. The frontier representatives were blunt where the Union preferred diplomacy. They saw compromises as weaknesses. They calculated in terms of absolutes. But slowly a treaty emerged. The frontier worlds would gain full representation. Their military forces, built on human philosophy but incorporating advantages from multiple species, would become a specialized rapid response force, the Union's version of what humans called special operations. In exchange, they agreed to integration protocols, cultural exchange programs, gradual merging with core Union systems. "It's not perfect," Admiral said privately too, "but it's workable, and it's better than war." When finally returned to the academy, 2 months had passed. Her combat course had continued under its joint instruction. The results were remarkable. The 20 cadets who'd been to Taro's 7 had become informal instructors, teaching their peers, was demonstrating the nerve cluster grip that had used on him, explaining the biology behind it. Myra had written tactical analysis papers being studied by Union strategists, had transferred to the new Frontier Integration Corps. On her first day back, taught her final scheduled lesson. The amphitheater was packed. Word had spread. Students who weren't enrolled stood in the aisles, sat on the steps, anywhere they could find space. Stood in the center of the arena, looking up at thousands of faces. On the first day, Cadet asked me why we teach combat from a human perspective when humans have no natural weapons. I told you we'd learn the answer. Now, after everything we've been through, I'll give you the complete truth. Every species here has natural advantages, have crystal armor, have incredible strength, have superior reflexes. You were born with weapons. Humans were born with nothing but a brain that refused to accept limitations. That brain asked, "What if I use a rock? What if I sharpen it? What if I throw it? What if I attach it to a stick?" 10,000 years later, that same brain asks, "What if I catch his kick instead of blocking it? What if I use his strength against him? What if I turn his advantage into my weapon?" You have natural weapons. We have something scarier. We have absolute refusal to accept that we can't win. We have spite that outlasts common sense. We have certainty that if we're going down, we're taking the problem with us. She paused, scanning the crowd. The galaxy spent 200 years trying to civilize that out of us, to scatter it, to dilute it. Instead, we taught the frontier how to survive like humans, and now you're learning it too. Not because we're superior, not because violence is the answer, but because when the galaxy needs someone to stand in the dark and hold the line, humans say, "Okay, but we're doing it our way." And our way is simple. We don't have claws, so we use our hands. We don't have armor, so we don't get hit. We don't have venom, so we make ourselves lethal. We're not the strongest or fastest species. We're just the ones who never learned how to quit. The amphitheater erupted in applause. Not all of it was comfortable. Some cadets clapped because they understood, others because they were afraid not to. 6 months later, The first joint human frontier training facility opened on Taros 7. Admiral and Instructor co-directed it. The curriculum combined human combat philosophy with Union tactical doctrine. Stood in the observation deck, watching the first integrated class. Humans working with, beside, frontier-born instructors teaching methods that merged multiple species advantages. Joined her, now wearing junior instructor insignia. Do you think it will work?" he asked. Watched a human cadet execute a technique incorporating strength principles and timing, taught by a frontier instructor whose grandmother had been exiled for assault. "We caught a kick midair on the first day," she said. "We survived being scattered across the stars. We taught the galaxy that humans don't need advantages. We just need a reason to fight." She smiled. "Yeah, I think it'll work, because that's what we do. We take impossible situations and we make them work through sheer stubbornness." Below, a cadet caught a human strike using the precision grip had demonstrated months ago. Both grinned, the human showing teeth, thus equivalent gesture. The galaxy had learned why no instructor dared teach human combat. Not because it was too dangerous to share, but because once you understood how humans thought about survival, as an art, a science, something you did without hesitation when needed, you could never see challenges the same way. And somewhere on a harsh frontier, world that humanity had turned into home, children played games about the instructor who caught a kick midair and taught the galaxy that the smallest species could be the most dangerous. Not because of what they had, because of what they refused to accept they couldn't do.